and welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Eichten, and with me tonight is Leo Sun. Leo, how you doing?
Hey Ryan, it's been a long 3 days for us Lynx fans or anyone that's a fan of Minnesota sports. We saw, for those of you who missed it, we saw 6 primary starters or rotation players leaving free agency. And there wasn't a solid contingency plan, apparently, or at least not a reliable one. As of current right now, other than the 2 rookies they drafted, Cheryl Reeve and her front office have signed 2 30-year-old bigs who are kind of fringe starters at best, kind of at the tail end of their career, and just a flurry of young training camp bodies, some Euro players, people that have just kind of bounced around. So nothing noteworthy that would certainly replace production of those that are lost. And so the draft was today. We're recording this on Monday evening. And with the number 2 pick in the WNBA draft, the Lynx selected the player that was number 4 on my board, which is Olivia Miles. And I don't dislike Olivia Miles' game. I think of it as kind of, I always kind of cringe for doing NBA comparisons, but kind of a Andre Miller type of game, a smart game, not based on athleticism, kind of sees the court well, will be a solid starter, but I don't know if she has the highest floor. But it's less to do with that. I don't like Olivia Miles in that I liked Lauren Betts, AZ Fudd, and Fam as well too. So our Fam. But until then, Ryan, I mean, Cheryl Reeve has really proven fans and Lynx haters wrong a lot of times when expectations are low, and she typically overperforms them. So until proven otherwise, even though I'm quite a bit pessimistic about the season, I have to say we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer that of this, we'll call it like basically a cap spike, right? If to use NBA terms of the finances of the league and the salary cap of the league totally changed from a year ago, and everyone anticipated that. But the Lynx appeared to have gotten hit the hardest just because they had developed this awesome roster, and their top 3 players, or you can debate who their top, but they hold on to Fee, Courtney Williams, and Caitlin McBride, but basically almost your entire roster past those 3 has almost all departed for other situations and more money. Which as it sounded like Cheryl Reeve said today, that's really good for them, and obviously that's great for those people's career, but it from the Lynx point of view, it just kind of stinks that you lose out on a roster that had the best record in the league last year, seemed poised to win the title, probably should have won the title the year before, if not for a certain dress and a certain officiating crew on a certain night. As Cheryl will be the first to tell you. Yeah. Just a tough stretch for the Lynx. I don't really know much about the prospects, but like you said, the 2 bigs that were available to them, obviously Fudd goes first. They didn't have an opportunity to take her. The 2 bigs that were available, in my head it seems like we're the next 2 picks, but far be it from me to disagree with Cheryl, obviously, especially on, like I said, prospects I don't know a ton about. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this season goes. It might end up being kind of a down year for the Lynx as they try to respond the year after, but as long as they still have a top 3 as competitive as any other team in the league, and hopefully Fee can get healthy with her ankles as soon as possible.
Yeah, that timeline for return for Nafisa Collier is not officially available anywhere. I believe on the ESPN broadcast, Ryan Rucco had said something about August. I think Cheryl mentioned well, I'm glad he knows, so now I know when she's coming back, kind of joking that there hasn't been a clear outline timetable for her. But yeah, it could be like you said, a bit of a rebuild or down year for the Lynx this time around, but I think that's okay. I mean, the Lynx had a really solid 2 years, like you said. They probably should have deserved better fates in at least 1 or 2 of those years. But to kind of connect it back to the Wolves here, where I mean, the Wolves are doing kind of like year 3 of this thing now. I mean, obviously, or year 4 technically with the Rudy thing, and obviously they traded Cat for Julius Randle, so there were some changes, but the core pieces were for the most part there, and the Wolves have succeeded pretty well in the past 2 years. And we'll see what happens this year as well too. But I think it's just, to me, a little bit of a reminder that even the best things do come to an end at some point, short of those rare dynasties that we see, like the Lynx dynasty, or the Aces kind of run at it right now as well too. So not only one team can win a championship, and it seems like it may not be the Lynx this year, most likely not. But it'll be fun to, at least I would say, watch perhaps some of the younger players develop this year. As Wolves fans can attest to. We've seen enjoyed that process for many many years, or enjoyed, I say in quotes, but liked watching young players develop. So maybe we'll get that with the leagues this year.
Absolutely. All right, let's transition to the Wolves, who completed their regular season on Sunday with a an interesting win against the action on the court. We'll talk about it, but obviously the Wolves sit, aside from Dante playing the first 7 minutes, they sit their basically entire playoff rotation. But before we get into the meat in the show, let's talk about Kevin Garnett's return to Target Center. I thought a fun intro video, fun to see him. I mean, I saw him in the back hallway a little bit. Just it was like I heard him. I was sitting in the media room and I just heard his voice ringing through the back hallways of Target Center. So I immediately got up and just started looking for him. And he's the same guy. I mean, I was watching him interact with other people, but like he's the same guy off a camera that people see on camera, obviously. And then the entrance I thought was really interesting. The intro video was solid, and then KG enters, and I thought the imagery of this was very clearly intentional. Him flanked by Mark Laurie and Alex Rodriguez, the two guys that brought him here after basically decades of KG being away from the organization. And he sits courtside and he embraces Anthony Edwards. It did feel like, and we'll get more of this next season when his eventual jersey retirement, but it did feel like it did feel like the real start of the new era. Like obviously the Laurie and A-Rod ownership as they took over last offseason, and like the Wolves have made the playoffs 5 straight seasons now. So in terms of like that aspect of it, like the Wolves are well on their way past like the how many seasons, like 17 missed the playoffs 17 out of 18 years or something like that, 15 out of 16. Basically prior to the pandemic. It did feel like with KG at Target Center, it did feel like the dawn of really like next year when it seems like they'll have new jerseys. They probably will talk about this in the offseason, but they probably have a different roster aside from Ant and others, obviously. It was really good to see KG back in the building and just feel like just have the fans give him some love, because it's just been like he's not just like he's a franchise icon, and he's a Minnesota sports icon that had been away from the city and the team for way too long.
Yeah, it's a little bit of smearing or getting that cake and pie off their face that's been on there for the last however many years. Of everyone knew this was the elephant in the room with the Wolves organization, was like, hey, look, Ant's great, we'll see what happens in the future, but what's going on with this whole KG thing. And so them being able to kind of put that, I don't want to say put it behind them, but move forward from there, and being able to have them there was really cool. I'm a guy where when I watch TV or a sports game by myself, very rarely am I like smiling or talking to myself. But when I was watching that KG intro video, watching him walk out with his 2 daughters, and he just looked so happy being out there. And obviously the crowd was going crazy. I mean, I wish I could have been there to kind of see it or feel it. But it made me smile when I was watching that, just from my laptop, sitting down on the carpet next to my dog. Just like I had this like stupid smile plastered on my face. Like, man, like this feels good. I mean, we're both longstanding Wolves fans, and I don't know what I would have done, Ryan, if I were you and I heard him in the hallway, or want to go maybe even say hello when he walked by me. I know that in summer league, I think in 2015, 2016, that I was there. KG was walking around the concourse, and he was coming from down the hallway with a big like entourage with them, and I was standing in one of the concession lines. I was like, he's gonna walk right by me, and I was like, do I say hi? Do I say anything? Do I nod at him? Do I wave at him? Do I leave him alone? I just got really nervous because, like, they say you never want to meet your heroes, and so I didn't say anything, just because I mean, to us Wolves fans, I mean, he's like our Michael Jordan, right? And so I didn't want to mess up my image of him with him like blowing me off or cussing me out or something. So I just left him alone. So I mean, obviously that was many 10 years ago, but for you, Ryan, now I don't know if did you have any like, oh man, like that's KG, I could reach out and I could see him, or like do I say, hey, what's up, KG, or anything like that? I mean, obviously you were working, but did any of that cross your mind at all?
No, didn't end up being like a chance to interact with him. He was kind of hanging out in the back rooms more. I did ask Mike Conley just kind of about playing against KG, and he kind of shared a lot of the same stuff that like you've heard. He said like KG would trash talk, and Mike was like, it was stuff like you had never heard before. Like Mike was like, I couldn't believe like the stuff he was saying. I didn't know like that was allowed. Like just stuff that, I mean, I think we've heard stories like that from KG about KG for a while. I did post some highlight videos from current Wolves playing against KG and the Wolves, and I said to Mike about his tape that I posted where he had 20 points and 7 assists against KG and the Wolves. And when I mentioned Marc Gasol as one of the guys he was getting those assists with, he's like, "Oh, I was back in Memphis. Oh, wow." Like, I don't think Mike had a good mental, like how long ago that was for him too. So yeah, it was really cool to see. That was kind of a pinch me moment for me, talking about KG with Mike Conley of all people. Was really cool. And I'm excited for like next year, especially like the jersey retirement, but just like the off, I don't know how actively involved he'll be day to day or whatever, or like game to game, but it'll be good to have KG involved, making more social videos. I'm sure they'll do those. They'll have him up on the video board during games and all that stuff. I think it's really, I think next year in a lot of ways, for better or for worse, is gonna be a lot different than this. It's really the first off season, because like these time, like especially like the jersey stuff or whatever, like that stuff takes time and to implement. And A-Rod and Laurie didn't 100% know if they were going to own the team 12 months ago. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of change for next year, and at least in the KG department, that's a a really good change.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see what happens next year, and hopefully we can retire these, as many people call sailor suit jersey kits that they have, and see what comes next. I think for me, when they talk about new branding and all that stuff, that's cool. I think it was cooler if I was like younger. I think I'm more into that stuff. If anything, I'm more interested in how are the jerseys actually going to look, but against all merchandising. But before we get to next year, though, I mean, we still have this year to finish, and so when we get into our episode today, the Denver Nuggets finished with the number 3 seed in the Western Conference. They beat the Spurs in a game where both teams rested a significant part of their rotation, as well as Jokic getting his final game 65, I think it is, under his belt so that he could be eligible for awards, playing just 1.5. A lot of fans were hoping that the Nuggets would lose to the Spurs, and that would have put the Lakers up in the 3 seed, but alas, this is our fate. So, Ryan, your thoughts on the Nuggets getting the 3 seed and beating the Spurs?
Yeah, so I was at the Wolves game, but I spent most of that game watching the Spurs and Nuggets, because that game was incredibly it changed the Wolves playoff outlook by a wide margin. If the Spurs would have won, which I think they made a mistake, to be honest. I don't quite understand why they didn't play Wemby to win that game, because if Wemby plays, I think they win that game going away, especially, or if they had Cornette healthy. Like they didn't have any bigs. They were rolling Plumlee and Biyombo out there. Like they just didn't have bigs. And so the minute that happened, I was like, oh, Denver can win this game. And I just think, like, from the Spurs point of view, I think it made a lot of sense for them to push Denver to 4. Like, I think that would have been very helpful for them. So I do think they made a mistake there, and I try not to overreact watching them in a for them relatively meaningless game. But like, holy cow, did their young guards look a bit scared out there in a game that doesn't matter? And so you try not to open. I don't know. The Spurs played incredibly poorly, I thought, in that game. Ultimately for them, it might not affect them, but for the Wolves, it takes them from what looked like a free square, a free pass to the second round against an injured Lakers team, to being pretty sizable underdogs against the Nuggets. And if they're going to make the finals or whatever, it's going to be like, I don't know, 6 seeds just don't go to the finals under these, going to Denver, then San Antonio, then Oklahoma City. Like that just doesn't happen. Where I thought, like, if they had placed the Lakers in the first round, I thought, dude, the path to making it back to the West Finals is wide open. Like, you beat the Lakers, you're rested for a Spurs team, and obviously you'd be underdogs there too, but like you'd have a shot. And now we'll talk about this series, but like it's really hard to imagine them winning 2 or 3 straight playoff series, which is what we've been saying all year. But ultimately, like this is the fate they deserved. All year they never really played up to the level that a lot of us thought they could. They end up with 49 wins in obviously Ant misses a good amount of time of the season, but aside from Ant, they were incredibly healthy this season, and certainly they were more healthy than Houston and the Lakers and Denver, the 3 teams immediately in front of them. So it's hard to, while getting the Lakers would have been incredibly fortuitous, and it's hard to overstate how much different like their chances to make the second round, each round would have been just what much more possible for the Wolves. But ultimately, it's hard to like get too bent out of shape about it because, as I've been saying for like months now, this team is not good enough to win a championship. So maybe facing a Nuggets team, and if you're able to get through there facing both the Nuggets and the Spurs, I think will tell a whole lot about where this team's at, which players fit with this roster, which don't, and all of that stuff. I think at this point in the Wolves season is more important than getting a free square to the second round. So, well, I think it can be frustrating, the quote unquote bad luck of not getting the Lakers. I think there's a chance that it might end up working out for the better.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of Wolves fans that I saw on social media that were saying the Wolves got really unlucky, or that it was the Spurs really screwed it up. And, man, why did the Wolves always get the bad draw of this? Where I almost go the opposite way, where I feel like the Wolves almost got super lucky instead of being
Yeah.
able to draw the Lakers in the first round. Because,
And the
I
Wolves got
mean,
lucky last year. Like
yeah,
you can't
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't complain
absolutely.
about that. Like the Wolves got incredibly lucky, and
Right.
like they were underdogs against the Lakers, but like they placed in the second round. They faced a Warriors team that like they already had home court advantage over as a 6 seed, and then their best player gets hurt. So like
Right.
I'm not here for like I mean, did they get unlucky on Sunday night? For sure. But like I'm not here for like a big picture.
Yeah,
Like the
no.
Wolves always get unlucky. It's like it was 12 months ago. Like an incredibly
Right.
they were incredibly lucky.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, like, just talking about the Lakers for one quick minute is just kind of like they had just lost to OKC by 40 points, and that's the game where Luca got hurt and Austin Reeves got hurt. And right after that, they lost to the Dallas Mavericks. And so at that point, like, who would have thought that the Lakers would have won their next 3 games? Now, granted, I think it was they had the Jazz, and they had, I think it was maybe the Pelicans or something like that. But they did beat the Suns, with playing only LeBron out there, and so all that had to go right for the Wolves to even have a chance to get them in the first round. So, with all that said, yeah, I am one of the few people that am happy they're not playing the Lakers in the first round, partially for the reasons you said, Ryan, that the Wolves don't really learn anything about themselves playing a Lakers team like that. But at the same time, I detailed this, and I've mentioned this a lot in our last few episodes, that I don't want to play the Lakers because of the 2% chance they could possibly lose to them. It's kind of like, you get excited, say you get exclusive VIP tickets and experience to meet your favorite musical artist, whoever that is. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. I get to meet my favorite artist. But then there's a small percent chance this is going to go really crappy. They're going to be really mean to you, or, KG's going to cuss you out or whatever. Like, oh, I don't want that. You get nervous for that. You're like, I'd rather just not do it altogether, So that's how I feel. But yeah, I am excited to see how they cut their teeth against Denver, because that will be a series. One, obviously the Wolves are the dogs in, but at the same time, like you said, this is something that will be really important going into a very, very important offseason for the Wolves. And if they beat the Lakers in the first round and then lose to the Spurs, in convincing fashion in the second round, how many people are going to say, oh, well, the Wolves, we still advanced past the one round there, and so maybe it's not time to blow it up yet, where it's, well, I was kind of fool's gold beating, yes, you beat LeBron, but you're really beating a lifeless Laker team there. As much as I enjoy that, I don't feel is good for the long term of the team. So yeah, I agree with you on that, right?
Yeah, and I think just like the goal of this postseason to me is get as many games in against either title contending teams or close to it as possible. And so I think playing the injured Lakers opens the door to you don't get any of those games if you totally screw up the Lakers here. Now, if they had lost the injured Lakers, then like all bets would have been off in terms of postseason. But like now you're guaranteed to face one of the best teams in the league from the start. And if you beat them, and it depends how you beat them, then like that that tells you a lot about your team. If you make the West Finals again with this path, that'll tell you a lot about where this team is at. But just from a probabilistic standpoint, you're probably going to lose this series. And again, it depends on how that loss goes down. If you lose in 7 and you just couldn't quite make X shot or Y, what if it's close and Denver goes on to like win the title, then I don't know. It's not even worth like breaking it down to that degree. But yeah, it's not about the Wolves have made Western Conference Finals trips, and while doing that again would be nice, I think like you're just trying to learn as much about this roster because I think that's what's most important. And just thinking about the regular season, I think this Denver matchup highlights, and we'll talk about the actual series in a second here, but the Nuggets were like one of the most injured teams in the league the entire season. Obviously, like Jokic plays a couple more games than Ant in the end, and Ant might have played an extra 2 or 3 if the Wolves hadn't locked into the 6 seed like a week or two prior to the season. But like the Nuggets have like Peyton Watson's been hurt most of the season. Aaron Gordon's been hurt most of the season. Like all of their main guys have missed a substantial amount of time. So even if the Nuggets gained a couple extra games with their superstar, basically down the roster, they've been far less healthy than the Wolves, and they still ended up winning 5 more games than the Wolves. I saw one of the Denver people tweet out. So Denver started the season 20-6 when they were relatively healthy. They then went 18-19 before finishing the season out 15-2. And that 18-19 stretch in the middle of the season was when they were the most injured. Some of that was Jokic was out, and they actually kind of won a fair amount of games during that time. But then they really started losing games when Jokic came back, and a bunch of other guys went out, including when they lost to the Wolves, the one time they did lose to the Wolves. Obviously, a solid Wolves performance in that game, but like the Nuggets were missing a couple people, just like the Wolves were missing Ant in the first matchup between these two teams. And I kind of come back to that because at a certain point, like a 49 win regular season just like isn't enough. Like this one, like I think the Wolves were at the point, certainly next year, but I kind of felt like this year, it's like the Wolves aren't championship or bust in the terms of like only a title makes the season successful. I don't think any team that's fair expectations of. But I think what determines a successful season, basically, as long as Anthony Edwards is on this roster moving forward, is did you give yourself a chance to win the title? Did you perform like a title team? Did you have like a bite of the apple, basically, to use Tim Connolly's verbiage? And like this, at this exact moment, the Wolves have not done that. And judging by how badly they got beat by OKC the series last year, they didn't give themselves a chance at it either. Not a realistic one. Not one that could have come without like a healthy version of their opponent. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about before the season, but I also kind of admit like that's a lot of off-season talk that I'm jamming in there because I think they can win this series, and we'll talk about that. But like a lot of what I'm talking about will need to be determined in the offseason about how to react to the regular season. And the regular season, for better or for worse, doesn't matter anymore. You got to win at this point. You got to win 4 games before you lose 4 games.
Yeah. I mean, as we move into this Nuggets series preview, one of the big questions that we want to talk about is what is the biggest X factor for the Wolves and maybe perhaps either team. And so for me, I feel the biggest X factor is Julius Randle. Can Julius Randle return back to form? We saw a pulse from him late in the season. He had some good games that he strung together, albeit still his kind of typical head scratching turnovers and bad decision making. But in the 4 games against Denver this year, he performed really well. He averaged 24 points, 7.3 rebounds, 6 assists on over 50% shooting, including 6.8 free throws attempted per game, which is really going to be important. The Nuggets, for as good as they are on offense, still aren't the best defensive team. They've obviously improved. They have better personnel. I mean, obviously, if you lose Michael Porter Jr., that's going to help your defense. But Julius Randle does pose a little bit of downhill ability and to really put pressure on the rim in a way that the Nuggets have trouble defending. By all accounts, you assume that Aaron Gordon may, spend a good amount of time on Ant. I mean, if Peyton Watson's healthy, you might see that, maybe a little bit of Christian Brown. But for the most part, I mean, Julius Randle should have an advantage matchup. And if Aaron Gordon's not relegated to him, you saw Julius kind of pick on Jokic's defense a couple times, just kind of blowing by him or just going straight into him. And so I feel like if Julius Randle could get back to form, that would be really, really big for the Wolves. And not only just returning to form, I mean, I will say in those games against Nuggets that he performed really well this regular season. He shot pretty poorly from three. I think it was like 20% from three or something. And that's something that he's really struggled with this season. He shot well at the beginning of the season from beyond the arc, and it really tailed off all the way till now. And so he needs to find that back. He doesn't need to be chucking them up, but he has to convert on them where they're open. He has to take the open shots. Too many times that we've seen this season, especially late in the season, he gets the ball and he kind of like does a little jab step, pump fake, and he takes like one dribble and then like a step back three with 10 seconds on the clock where it's like, why? Like you don't need to take that shot. And so if he's catching and shooting and he's converting those, that will be really important because they have to stretch out the defense. They can't just sit and live in the paint and wait for those active Denver perimeter defenders to get their hands in. That's what frustrates Julius Randle so much, and that's what causes it. I think in that final game against the Pelicans, we don't need to dive too deep into that, but one of the things that they did really well in is that they protected the ball. I mean, the Pelicans aren't a good team by any means, and they were even missing a lot of their best players. But the Wolves hardly turned the ball over in that game. And you could feel that a big reason is because there wasn't a Julius Randle or, to be fair, a Naz Reid out there who are turnover machines. I mean, they have a high dribble sometimes. They play with their back to the basket without really seeing what's coming on the weak side. And that's what causes a lot of the Wolves turnovers, just literally them driving like head first into two different defenders. And that happens all too often. And the Nuggets, even though I wouldn't classify them as a defensive juggernaut, they are a team though that has active hands and long rangey guys and Bruce Browns that will get in there, Christian Browns that'll kind of mess them up a little bit. So yeah, I think Julius Randle will be one of the keys, in my opinion, one of the biggest X factors for the Wolves.
Yeah, and honestly, that'd be probably one of my main worries about the series is being able to get Julius Randle going because I think Aaron Gordon is going to spend most of the series on him, and Gordon is one of the best defenders in the NBA, and I think is the exact type of body type that can slow Julius down. So that'd be I agree with you, like getting Julius going. If the Wolves win the series, to a certain extent, they'll need to get Julius going, and my worry about that is I don't know if that they're going to be able to do that. My biggest X factor is basically just Rudy Gobert in terms of either can the Wolves find enough offense with Gobert on the court? And if they can't, can they find enough defense with him off? And that second part is I just immediately think no. They're not going to be able to defend well enough with Gobert off the court. The only time that they've ever, this whole season, that they've had a even half decent defense with Gobert on the court is with Kyle Anderson on the court. And those minutes have been similarly bad on offense with Anderson out there. So he kind of falls in and certainly in the minutes with Gobert and Anderson on the court offensively they haven't worked even in a small sample size. So to me, if the Wolves are going to win the series, it's going to be because on offense they were able to score enough points and their offense was able to hum well enough when Gobert was out there that they didn't feel the need. Like, to me, the idea, we've seen this so often where the Wolves are down, they need to come back, and in Finch's immediate way to do that is to pull Gobert off and put Naz Reid in there. And I think the Wolves just have, maybe the Wolves can just literally just go offense for offense, and like no one's stopping, the Nuggets aren't stopping the Wolves aren't stopping the Thunder. But I think the more efficient way, if the Wolves are going to win the series, is they find an offensive rhythm with Gobert on the court so that you can keep him on the court and you're not going to stop Jokic. You're not even really going to slow him down, but just to have any sort of semblance of a defensive core with Gobert on the court. And similar to your Randle point, we've just so seldom seen that throughout the entire season of being able to integrate Gobert. And again, fast forward into the offseason for both of these guys, like if you can't get one or both of them going in the offseason, that immediately brings up the question of should one or both of them be on this team come next year? Again, let's save that for June, July, August, September. But um, the one kind of positive about that Gobert thing is the one game the Wolves did win. People remember, and I'm going to post something on social media about this. They were picking up Ant at like literally half court, and Ant was doing a good job of getting off the ball, getting it to Rudy, and they were playing 4-on-3. And I thought Rudy did a good job of taking a dribble and finding the open guy. So the Wolves do have experience in this specific Denver matchup about like integrating or finding Gobert in the offense, specifically with doubling Ant. My worry is just like, yeah, the Wolves picked apart that specific coverage, but when the Nuggets slightly tweak it, does Ant, do the Wolves, the rest of the roster have the ability to like, oh, you're doing this, I'm gonna attack this way. You're gonna like that chess match, in-game chess match, in-series chess match. They obviously have a little bit of that, but like to beat a team like Denver, I don't know if they're going to be able to find enough of that to to match Denver's offense, which has been the best of the league.
Yeah, the whole Rudy Gobert and the postseason thing is always seems to be low hanging fruit for your ESPNs and your Fox Sports kind of to pick up to be like you can't play him in the playoffs, and we've seen that. I mean, Rudy is capable of playing the playoffs. It's just how is his teammates going to integrate themselves around him or get him integrated with them? I mean,
But
across the
if he can't play in the playoffs, it's not because of his defense, especially with like
sure,
he guards no one guards Jokic. He guards Jokic as well as anyone. It's
right.
on offense. Like the offense doesn't play well enough when Rudy's on the court. That if there's like a kernel of truth to the Rudy playoff stuff, it's on that end of the floor, not the defense.
Yeah, no, and I can agree with that. I mean, across the 4 games, regular season games the Wolves play against Denver, I mean, Rudy Gobert averaged 7 points and 9.5 rebounds. I mean, that's pretty poor for him by his standards, and he has to find a way that sometimes, I mean, his teammates, I would say, is the majority of the, uh, you say blame for him not getting involved, but he also has to take himself into the picture as well too and be active on the glass. I mean, Jokic is a great rebounder. He eats a lot of space, but he's got to go in there and crash. He's got to play like he did against the Lakers in that closeout game 5. We need to see that aggressive Rudy Gobert on the glass and making opportunities for himself. He has to set good screens. He has to not get taken out of the game with foul trouble. Like, he has to be available. He has to catch passes, and he doesn't have to shoot 80% from the free throw line, but he has to convert those. I mean, this is something that's been always an up and down thing with them as well. So there's something to say about, I mean, how many fadeaway jump shots is Rudy Gobert going to hit on the Nuggets this series? It's wild to see, like, when Rudy is active and when he's feeling good, what he does out there, because it really does, I feel like, uncork that cap of what he could do on offense and on the defensive side. When he's feeling good, he's feeling confident, he feels like his teammates are with him. And so, yeah, absolutely, I can agree with you. I think the Rudy thing is going to be a huge storyline going to this one.
Yep, and then I guess I'll throw in one here. It's just like the Anthony Edwards offense, I think, is a big thing. I kind of already mentioned like the chess match aspect of it, but like the main advantage the Wolves have is like the Nuggets just don't have. They don't have either the like they don't have a All NBA wing defender, and they don't have a rim protector in the traditional sense. And so Ant, I think like Ant's gonna just need to average like 40 points for them to win the series, or if the Nuggets do send 3 defenders at him, where like he's just gonna have to make the right play every single time. And during the regular season, we really didn't see that against the Nuggets. On Christmas, I remember being specifically frustrated with how they were utilizing Ant and how Ant was playing, because like obviously Ant finishes the game with 40 points, but like for through most of that game, Ant was pretty silent. And it's like your biggest advantage is Edwards in this game, and they didn't get him the ball enough. He didn't succeed in the touches he did get. So that'd be like my other small X factors, like just like maximizing the Anthony Edwards advantage you do have as much as possible. Because in a lot of other areas, Denver's just going to be able to outgun you. But in terms of like, that's the one spot the Wolves do have.
Yeah, I think we all know that the Wolves will go as far as Ant could take them. I mean, not quite literally, but figuratively, that's true, right? The exercise of Ant has to be able to get going because they just don't have respectfully to Julius Randle, they just don't have that second star that could put the whole series on their shoulders and be able to take them as far. So I do agree with you. The other little X factor that I would say is also, how are they going to guard Jamal Murray? Now, as many of us know, Jamal Murray, first time All-Star. He's been playing great all season for seemingly the first time ever, start to finish. He hasn't been super injured this season, which is good for him. And I recall in a lot of the Nuggets games against the Wolves during the regular season, Jamal Murray was getting off a lot just by getting one simple screen, and he's just rolling into a wide open mid-range jumper.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the issue with that is it's not just on one player, but Nickeil Alexander-Walker is one of the premier perimeter defenders, and we saw that when him and Jaden, in that game 2, I think it was against Nuggets, where they just ate up their offense, ate up Jamal Murray, where Jamal Murray's throwing heat pads onto the court is because he was so frustrated by that point of attack defense. And the Wolves have really struggled to, I wouldn't say have any of that, but to do it consistently. They've really struggled. Sometimes Dante DiVincenzo just looks like he's just always trailing a play, not in position for as hard as he tries. Io has been pretty good on that end, but there just hasn't been that elite, consistent perimeter defender that could kind of fight around screens and stay in front of Jamal. So I am a little bit worried about how they're going to contain him this year. It sounds cliche, but a lot of it will be effort and focus from the team to follow the game plan, not get lost, not go astray of like, okay, well, I'm just going to go make a play and just scrap the game plan, because that's where things get really wobbly for the Wolves.
Yeah, I do think that is one area where the Nuggets not having Michael Porter Jr. makes things a little easier for the Wolves. And Cam Johnson might be a better player or might be a better fit, and that trade made a lot of sense for them. But I think the ceiling of MPJ is just higher than what they currently have with Cam Johnson, and they've replaced that with depth, which obviously has made a lot of sense for them and was one of the reasons in an injured season for them they were still able to win 54 games. But like, I don't think you're putting like, okay, we got a premier defender on Cam Johnson, right? Like, you can guard a bunch. You need a good help defender there for that position. So I think it'll be, let's just think about the starting lineup. How will it match up? Obviously, Rudy on Gobert, Julius on Gordon. Jaden will guard Jamal Murray, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And then what? That leaves Ant and Dante to guard.
Yeah.
Whoever is Brown,
yeah.
Brown and Cam Johnson. So like, they match up fine there. It'll just be about like how effective can Jaden be, and I think a little bit of that is like, I watched briefly some of the games the Wolves and Nuggets have played, and like you said, like, the Wolves would just get destroyed on screens, like just absolutely just 10,000 miles out of the play, and Jamal Murray would either walk into a jumper or a layup or whatever, and it's just like that 2 years ago, Nickeil or not, like, was just not happening at all. And so if we see that, then the Wolves are kind of toast, and that kind of leads me into our next topic is just flatly, can the Wolves win this series? The Nuggets are favored anywhere from -300 to -325 from what I've seen. So roughly an implied win percentage, series win percentage of 75%, according to Vegas there. My view is the Wolves absolutely can win the series. I think anyone that thinks they can't, I think would be a little naive. The Wolves can win the series. I've seen a lot of worry about Ant's knee, and maybe he's not 100%. I kind of have the feeling that like he's good to go. He'll be the Houston game was enough for me. I think Ant will be ready to go, pretty much full bore. My thing with this series is like, on paper, the Wolves should not win this series. Just judging by their regular season numbers, and like, this is kind of something I said earlier in the season, was if you don't have the better record, the better net rating, or whatever underlying number you want to use, and you don't have the best player in the series, I'm not sure what would give anyone the idea that you can win the series. Like, what if you're down all of those areas? Like, it's an uphill battle at the very least. And so like, the idea is, can the Wolves flip the switch, right? Like, that's the cliche. And maybe they can, maybe they can't. And like I said, the Wolves absolutely can win the series. My point would be like, they would have to play at a level they basically haven't shown all season. And maybe they can do that. Maybe they can flip the switch. But like, the At no point did the Wolves play a 7-game stretch during the regular season where you go, if they play like that 7-game stretch, they could beat a team like the Nuggets. They just haven't. They have played 3, 4, 5-game stretches like that. And so given that, I believe the Wolves can make it a tight series, and maybe they can even win. I think at a certain point, like, the regular season does matter. And for me, I'd probably put it like 60-40 Nuggets. So like if you're looking for value, Vegas value or whatever, the minus 300 is a bit high for the Nuggets. But like I think the Nuggets are rightly favored to win this series.
That's fair. I'm not going to argue against that. I will say that in our latest Canada's Pulse's prediction piece, I voted for the Wolves in 7. And if you remember correctly last year, Ryan, I predicted 14 out of 15 playoff games correctly for the Wolves in the postseason. So you heard it here first. I think that Minnesota is going to win game 1 with a surprise. I think the Nuggets are going to come in, maybe thinking that they're going to cruise through this one, and Ant's going to do his thing. They'll win game 1. I think they'll win the first game back at home in Minnesota, game 3, and I think that they'll also steal the next one there in Denver in game 5. Lose at home, and it's going to be an alternating series with the Wolves finishing in 7. So do I think that's likely? No, but I do think that, like you said, the Wolves have a better chance. I think some people feel. I will say this: Nuggets, yes, they are riding a huge win streak. They are a good team. They have, I don't think it's controversial to say they have the best player in the series, obviously. Perhaps the best 2 players. Well, 2 of the 3 best players, I would say, of both teams on their team. So with that said, I do feel that Denver, I've watched enough of their games, especially at the end of the season, when, to see, are they going to slip out of the 3 seed? And a lot of the games that they did win, it doesn't mean that, oh, okay, well, they had a moral loss, but they struggled in a lot of those games. I mean, they had to squeak by teams like Memphis, teams like Dallas. There were a lot of teams where it's like they were down double digits in the third quarter, and they really had to, play their starters heavy minutes to get to the finish line. And again, I'm not saying that that means that Denver's bad. I mean, a win is a win, but I do think that they are vulnerable, and there are spots, and I think that you always have to give the Wolves that postseason like attribute bonus of, oh, playing as underdogs, they do better. So I do think that Ant is going to show out, and I do feel that if we get some semblance of a normal Julius Randle, or at least just give us like 3, maybe 4 good Julius Randle games, I do think that they have a better shot. I'd say, if I had to break it down, I'd say like maybe 55% Wolves, 45% Nuggets, just with my own biases on that. But I do think, yeah, it's kind of on a razor's edge for me. I think it could go either way on that.
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite. I'm more on, I think the Nuggets are fairly, I would give them, like I said, 60% chance. And so my pick would be Nuggets in 7, and I'm leaning closer to Nuggets in 6 than I am Wolves in 7. But I'm pretty sure I said the same thing last year. So I guess in that sense, I'm willing to be wrong. And like I said, I think the Wolves can win this series. I haven't seen enough from them this regular season to think that they can hit the ceiling that they need to hit to win this one.
I do want to throw one more thing out there, is that a lot of people are saying this is round 3 of the Wolves Nuggets rivalry, which I can understand, because I mean, this is since Ant has been on the team, but technically the Wolves have beaten the Nuggets twice already in the postseason. They beat them back when Kevin Garnett in 2004 won the MVP season. They eliminated the Nuggets in the first round when a young Carmelo Anthony, was still on the Nuggets. So technically the Wolves are up 2-1 in the rivalry series there. So if the Nuggets win, then they'll tie it up. But no, I get it. I mean, obviously with this iteration, it is kind of a round 3. So I think if anything, it'll be fun. I saw someone posting on Blue Sky about like, where are the chances that there's a lot of fights or shenanigans happening between the players, kind of straight voltage type of things. And I think there's a lot of things that could go wrong. I mean, Jaden gets hot a lot of the times, and I pointed out that one time last season where Rudy Gobert almost punched Christian Brown in his face after Christian Brown dunked on him and was taunting him in that. I think Jamal Murray is going to get frustrated by somebody. Dante is always kind of an irritant, and Naz Reid is always kind of ready to scrap. We saw that a lot this season from him. So I do think there will be some extracurriculars, which makes it all the more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be it's gonna be a fun series. I don't think anyone really picks differently, and I think the people that even if they are picking Denver like myself, there's a healthy respect for the Wolves and what they can do. And you mentioned there's also Game 82 between these two franchises back in 2018. And what's kind of interesting about that is that was the last time the Nuggets missed the playoffs. They've made the playoffs 8 straight seasons. Since then, Denver does have the longest active playoff streak in the West. Wolves are second with 5 seasons, and only Boston has more than those two. I guess I should mention the Heat also have a lot longer active streak than the Wolves, but I'm projecting them to lose one of their 2 play-in games to miss the playoffs here and reset their year. So the Wolves potentially have the 3rd longest playoff streak. So that shouldn't that that's not for nothing. But let's transition to kind of talking about the end of the regular season. Obviously, the games they didn't matter for the Wolves, but let's talk about the Wolves' Apex Alpha for this past week. I'm going with Juan Berenger, who played fantastic. Really, they played all right against the Rockets, but the Pelicans game, the regular season finale, I thought he was awesome. He's the youngest player in NBA history to put up 20 or more points, 10 or more rebounds, and 5 or more blocks. He ended up with 24 points, 13 rebounds, and 7 blocks. I just think it's another sign of, and I think a week ago I was kind of with his foul trouble, I worried about, well, maybe Berenger may not be ready next year. And there will certainly be games if he is in the rotation next year where we feel that way. But I think next year the Wolves are just going to have to carve out like 10 minutes at least for this guy to play. Who knows what the roster looks like next year? I just think I think he's going to be ready or close, or just like they're going to want to get him minutes for his development, because for all the picks they don't have, this is one of their blue chip prospects. I feel like, even if they didn't pick him with the top pick, obviously Dillingham is not in the organization anymore. They spent a lot of draft capital on, where Berenger was the hanger on pick from the cat trade. But they need him to pan out. And so I think next year he'll need to play. And this is another example against, obviously the Pelicans aren't some amazing team, but I think he played well enough where it's okay, Berenger should be a rotation staple, at least at low wattage next year.
Yeah, Johan is just too big, too athletic, too physical, too much of a hustle player, not to deserve to be out there. Like you said, he still may continue to make those mistakes next year with the fouling and maybe being out of place and things like that. But I hate to use this excuse, but it's the truth. I mean, dude is 19 years old still. He's not turning 20 till summer. And the fact that he was dominating at the G League level at age 19 says a lot. A lot of the times, the guys you see who are putting up crazy stats in the G League are guys that are they've been in the league for a couple years. They're kind of ramping back up, or guys that have been career journeymen, your mid 20s, late 20s, kind of, bigger, stronger, more experienced kind of guys that dominate the G League. But he is not one of those players. And so it's just so crazy to see some of those blocks that he gets out there. And, it's really interesting what he's going to evolve into. I know they use that cliche that he's a ball of clay and that there's, he can mold into anything, but I mean, the expectations that he could, the outcomes, the wide range of outcomes he can land in is just so huge. And so I'm really excited about Johan. And, speaking of, late round picks, I mean, my Apex Alpha is TJ Shannon. In these last 3 games, he's absolutely back. The aggression is back. I think with that aggression, his confidence has come with it. And with that confidence, you see it in his 3-point stroke. You see it in the way that he draws contact. Even the playmaking is out there. He's making some great corner reads off drives. Really just doing a lot of good stuff out there. He's averaged 27.3 points, 2 rebounds, 3.7 assists, all shooting 55% from the field, which includes 47.6% from 3 and 84.6% from the free throw line. Now, oftentimes you look at the small sample size of 3 games, okay, well, maybe he had a hot game. It's no, he averaged 3.3 3-pointers made per game during that time. He was getting the shots up. And even with the free throws, I mean, Ryan, this dude was averaging 7.5 free throws a game in the last 3 games. I understand that last game was kind of a throwaway game, which is funny because that last game was probably his worst game of the previous 3. So I don't know if TJ is going to be a heavy minutes guy in the playoffs. Most likely not. But the fact that he's getting something is really important, because the Wolves don't have that stable of, I think you talked about in a recent podcast episode about the stable of young player at every position right now kind of thing. And TJ isn't young per se, but I mean, he is one of those younger prospect. He's a second year in the league right now, and they can get anything out of him. It's going to be really important. And his downhill ability is what they really hoped that, maybe not averaging 27 points a game, but this type of play is what they were hoping to get from him all season. So him getting it now and kind of using that as a ramp up into the postseason is going to be really important for the Wolves, whether it's this year or the future year, because he's scary out there. I mean, he's a highlight machine. I mean, I don't know how many crazy dunks he's had this last couple games.
Yeah, and it's hard to really put into words how poor his season this year has gone. And
Yeah.
when he has been out there, it's been rough, and he's been hurt a lot of the season. But I think I think this stretch will hopefully turn out to be really important for him. Playing well. I thought the Rockets game was especially impressive for him because like you can say, oh, the Pelicans they didn't have X player out there, they're bad or whatever. But like the Rockets were still trying to win. I think they still at that point had a chance to get the 4 seed, they had home court advantage, or the 3 seed maybe even at that point. Like that was the team trying, and like Terrence Shannon was the leading scorer in a win over them. I think it'll end up hopefully being like a real a turning point or a rebound or silver lining on what was a really lost season for him. And you get an off season, you get some time to rest whatever injuries, and you hopefully next year can be the season that this year was supposed to be. And unfortunately, if not, then that'll probably be the end of his Timberwolves experience. But that's going too far ahead on that. Let's move on. Prey of the week, Leo. Who do the Wolves make their prey?
I mean, we're talking about the Rockets. We might as well stay there. Let's talk about one Mr. Kevin Durant on the roster of Houston. KD has lost 9 of his last 10 games against the Timberwolves. And that lone game that they won was one in January where Anthony Edwards wasn't playing. And so, I mean, this includes getting swept in the playoffs 2 seasons ago. And you just kind of see it. I don't want to say he's nervous. I mean, it's not like he's played poorly against the Timberwolves by any means, but that for some reason he just can't really come through in the clutch that they need him to. That game against the Rockets just recently that you were talking about, he had, well, not the recent one, but the one in overtime. I mean, he had, was he 90% free throw shooter, something like that? And he goes to the free throw line, could have tied it. He misses the first one. And then you kind of see it again, even against this most recent game against the Wolves as well, too, where the Wolves were leading by a considerable margin in that fourth quarter. And then Kevin Durant goes to the line with a chance to kind of cut it down. And I think he's cut it down to like a 5-point game or something. And the Wolves are up 5. Yeah, he could have cut it to a 3-point game, to a single possession game with a minute left. And he misses a first free throw again. And I don't want to say that KD's washed, but I mean, he certainly has this kind of bug in his ear about the Wolves because he's gotten killed.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same prey basically. I had the Rockets, like them losing a game that like they were trying to win when the Wolves didn't have their entire starting big rotation, and then the next guy, Berenger, getting in foul trouble during that game, like not a great look. And maybe it doesn't matter because it seems like they should be able to take on and beat the shorthanded Lakers. But like, I don't know. I was a little surprised like Denver didn't actively try to tank, but like, I don't know, that makes sense too. Like they're trying to win the title. What is it? Is there really that much difference between the Rockets and the Wolves? Maybe not. All right. Before we do our 2 words, Leo, let's give our quick playoff picks. We already kind of said what we thought about the Wolves Nuggets, but I'll give my conference finalists. I have Oklahoma City beating Denver in the West. Obviously I think San Antonio can get there too, but I have a lot of faith in this Denver team. And then in the East, I have Boston over Detroit. Boston's been incredibly impressive even before Tatum come back, and Tatum's looked, for an Achilles tear guy, has looked awesome. And then I think OKC is going to repeat over Boston to win another title. Leo, what do you got?
Yeah, so I had Wolves to 7, and now the other side of the bracket, I do see OKC coming out there as well too, and I do feel that the Wolves have a chance to beat the Spurs. So I'm going to say that the Wolves meet the Thunder again in the conference finals, and this time it's going to be different. This time the Wolves are going to lose in 6 instead of 5. So it will be improvement from last year. That's my prediction for the West. And on the East, I also have Detroit going to the conference finals instead of Boston. I'm having New York coming out on that side. Our old friend Cat's going to have a great playoff run. And I think Detroit's going to beat New York in 6 as well too. Give me us an OKC Detroit finals, and in the finals for me, I have OKC beating Detroit in 5 in a relatively easy season, and then repeating in a season where they were the favorite the whole way.
Yeah, and I will say I picked Denver over the Spurs. I do think both of us are underselling the Spurs. I do absolutely think like they will be favorites against Denver, but I do think whoever comes out of Wolves Nuggets will have an incredibly good shot at beating them. Maybe not 50%, but yeah, should be a really fun playoffs. And I think Wolves Nuggets is really the only supremely interesting first round series. But the second round is basically going to be, aside from Thunder versus presumably Rockets, I think the 2 East series are going to be both really, really fun. And then Spurs versus Wolves or Nuggets will be awesome. So it should be a fun postseason. And I don't know. I'm kind of, well, I think OKC will win. I'll probably root for most of the other teams over Oklahoma City, but that probably tells you how good they are if I'm actively rooting against them or whatever.
We've mentioned the Thunder, the Celtics, some of the teams that we had in the conference finals. Do you have one dark horse team on either conference that you feel like, look, I don't think that they're going to make the finals or conference finals, but who do you think is going to surprise a lot of teams on either side, just if you had to pick one?
I don't know. Maybe Hawks over Knicks would be like a.
That's what I was gonna pick that too. I like that.
Just something about the Knicks. If Embiid were healthy, maybe there'd be like a Philly versus Detroit thing going on. Maybe Charlotte. I wish Charlotte was in the 7-8 side of the play-in, but like Charlotte's just been playing awesome. I think Detroit will be pretty heavy favorites, but if Charlotte can make the playoffs, and I haven't been paying attention if Cade has kind of come back healthy or not, but maybe that's a series that'll certainly be far closer than a normal 1-8. In the West, I don't know. I don't really. If there was a team,
it's either favorites or like people that have no chance.
if there was a team, I guess it'd be the Wolves. But at that point, I'd feel like it's like, well, I'm not picking. Like, I don't even think that's a good. I think calling them a dark horse would almost sell them short, or I don't know. Like the bottom of the West is, and like that's an interesting 7 through 10 in the East is better than 7 through 10 in the West.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I guess Charlotte and Atlanta are my 2 picks, but I'm kind of hoping for chalk because I do think the top 4 in the East are the best teams out there. So that'll be, you kind of root for the most fun playoff series. And while maybe if I like a Hawks upset over the Knicks would be fun or whatever, I think the Celtics would then dispatch them fairly quickly. Yeah. Where a rematch of last year's second round between the Celtics and the Knicks would be pretty fun.
You kind of stole mine, so yeah, we can move on to our 2 words now since you got my picks too.
Well, you're not into the Magic. What about the Heat? The Miami Heat? Oh my gosh,
the Magic! Don't get me started on them. And I was gonna jokingly say the Warriors, not. And even I can't buy any of those West teams either. I mean, I almost want to say like maybe
Clippers with Kawhi just going supernova.
Yeah, and then they could go face the Thunder in the first round. It's just kind of I don't know about that.
Well, maybe dark horse is like Golden State making the playoffs. Like that'd be kind of a.
I guess so. Yeah, I'll give my dark horse to Phoenix making it, winning a game in the first round. How about that?
Getting San Antonio a little bit of extra playoff revenue for Game 5 of the first round. Yeah. Let's close out with 2 words. My 2 words are fun times. A little bit tongue in cheek, I guess, where you kind of get the bummer of you don't get the lucky break of the Lakers or whatever, but. At the very least, like 5 straight years of the playoffs, it'll now be their, let me count, 1, 2, 5, 8, their 9th playoff series in 5 years. Obviously, we're hoping for 10, 11, 12, but like it's going to be incredibly fun. I'm going out to Denver for games 1 and 2, and obviously back home for 3 and 4. Like it's going to be an incredibly fun series. I guess maybe it won't. Maybe there's a unfun series path here. I don't personally see that, but like. It shouldn't be overlooked that they made the playoffs 5 straight seasons, that they've like 49 games would have been a season. I mean, think about it. It's not that long ago that if the Wolves had won 49 games and we went into a playoff series, like, yeah, the Wolves could win that series. Like that would have been like the greatest thing. I remember when they faced Memphis, like I was super pumped for that series. Like they started that season, I believe 10-8, and I was pumped. Like, dude, we're like a quarter of the way into the season. We don't suck yet. This is awesome. So it's while like there's plenty of potential like doom and gloom to come in the off season, or at the very least change and like real hard look at this roster and this organization or whatever. I really think just put that aside, let that all go, let go of my frustrations from the regular season. Enjoy this series, enjoy the fun, enjoy the chess match from like on the court. What we'll talk about, the podcast we'll do, like that'll be the fun stuff. And then if and when they lose, either this series next year or whatever, then the Krabbies can come back. But for now, let's have some fun.
Yeah, sports should be fun, right? And I think similar to you, where it's other than the Wolves just absolutely getting spanked and swept by the Nuggets, or a Memphis type series where they're up almost every game and blow every fourth quarter. Outside of those two outcomes, I'm okay with what happens. Like a fun competitive, 5 or 6 game series. I mean, it's not the best, but I'll try to enjoy that and not to get too frustrated. Like, why are we losing to them? My 2 words is house money. The Wolves clearly are not favored to win anyways. And like I said earlier, it seems to be that's when the Wolves are at their best, is when people don't believe in them. The national media is not going to pick them. And that's great because the Wolves love being underdogs. And I can't wait for Ant to parade around the streets of Denver, or if you can even do that out there, just kind of talking trash about the national media that picked the Wolves to lose in 5. So yeah, I'm excited. It's house money. The season is either going to end or continue from here. So there's no other outcomes here. So I think, while you're here, let's make it count. And even if you don't, like, just enjoy the Blaze of Glory out.
Absolutely. Well, this podcast will be back after game 1. Or no, excuse me. I have another podcast with Jace Frederick coming on Thursday. So everyone will be on the lookout for that. Jason and I will really dive deep into the individual matchups, even more than Leo and I have here, as we get some more time to really watch. We go to practice these next couple days, and we all can kind of dive deep into the X's and O's or whatever. So Jason and I will do that Thursday. And then I think the plan for this pod after that will be try to do a show after every game of the playoffs. Might not be an hour long like they normally are here, but at the very least 30 to 45 minutes of just breaking down the game. I don't think we'll do, to go inside baseball or whatever, I don't think we'll do live shows like we did last year, just because it's a little bit harder for all of us. But if just to get something up based on every game, I think will be fun for us, like I mentioned, but also good to really like that'll be that's the fun. Like, it's like okay, they win or lose game 1. What needs to go different? What needs to stick? So that'll be where our podcast goes. And hopefully you guys will be along for the ride. But for Leo, I'm Ryan. Thank you everyone for listening.
Go home and drive safe.
Go Wolves.
Ayoo!